What's up, y'all? Kyle Hamilton here. I want to give a quick shout out to Lucas, Connor, and Ryan in the Week 0 podcast.
Jackson rolling out, 3rd and 7 after the penalty, and it's a completion to Kuma. He's still running. Kuma breaks free against a tired defense as the Hokies deliver the dagger here in Tallahassee. Empty look for Richardson. Oh, that is danger! Oh my! Keidron Smith cuts inside, and he's gonna pick six it in the swamp. Cat scratch fever Smith.
DJ is picked off, intercepted again by Benjamin Morrison. Here goes Morrison down the sideline. Can he go? Yes, he can. Touchdown, pick six, Benjamin Morrison. Nix drops back underneath. Touchdown, Ducks. Wow. Chase Taylor.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are finally back after like a 3-4 week hiatus. I don't even know how long it's been.
2 weeks.
3 weeks? That's how
Two.
long it's taken Phil to finally come off his bender after Michigan won. So he's ready to get back into it, right? Right, Phil?
Absolutely.
I'm your host, Top Left Box. What the fuck is Virginia Tech? Duke Frat Boy. To my left is Josh Bryant, Saban, or Moses. Let's hear your explanation of that.
Since Saban's departure from Egypt, Tuscaloosa, it means that a lot of his players are following suit, just heading out of Tuscaloosa into the promised land of the transfer portal.
Yeah, he opened the Red Sea.
The transfer portal is Israel now.
Josh, he parted the Red Sea for his
all the
players
4
to
and
enter the
5
portal.
stars.
Yeah,
All the 4 and 5 stars who weren't starting are the Israelites.
And of course, we got
the rest of the college football world.
And then, of course, we got Phil Mays, Madman, 15-0 Fire Ward. I don't know what that means.
Ward
And then, of
Manuel,
course,
the AD.
No, the AD.
Michigan AD. Yeah.
Why fire him?
Because he is anti Jim Harbaugh, clearly, with all his actions.
Gotcha. I met the Notre Dame AD just randomly in a bathroom.
In the bathroom.
What the fuck,
And you
bro?
didn't get an interview?
No, but I was like, I walk
dare
in there and I was trying to. It was during college, and of course we got Ryan Fryball. I'll finish the story. So it's at college game day. It's like
Damn, and of course Ryan Fryball is there too.
well, Ryan doesn't have anything
Top
else
liver,
left.
top
No,
liver.
keep going with the story.
Anyway, it's like, I don't know, 10 o'clock. I have to go to the bathroom. I leave. I walk towards the stadium, but there's no places like open. You can't go in the stadium, obviously, go to the bathroom. So like, I think the basketball stadium, I see someone walk in there. It's like, okay, I'll try and sneak in there. And like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. It's like, sure, we'll let you in. I go in, and I see this guy come in dressed up in a nice suit and tie. And I was just like, oh, what's the occasion or something? He's like, oh, we're on in the I think it was like track and field team or rowing team or something. They won a title, I think. And I was just like, oh, cool. And it was like, so what's your position? I was like, oh, I'm like the future AD. Like, it was like he was going to be taking over sometime in January. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And so I was like, nice to meet you.
And Connor doesn't bother to mention this until we're sitting down at our seats watching.
I told you this. I swear I took a picture. I either took a picture or just told you.
In between Ryan being like an 85-year-old man. And,
Ryan being an 85-year-old man and how slowly he walks.
Ryan goodness.
Hey, I was just taking in the scenic view of the campus. Don't give me that.
After bitching for an hour about not wanting to walk around the campus.
It was fucking hot, man, and I just stood for fucking 5 hours in one spot.
Meanwhile, Lucas has passed on the car. Me and Josh get him. We then walk to the place to get food, and Ryan's like, "I'm gonna take an Uber." And then I'm like, I guarantee you. And then I'm like, I guarantee Ryan half an hour from now,
man.
I'm gonna be walking over because there's no way it's gonna take him less than
Dude,
30
you
minutes.
should have heard me at the Clemson game. I was so pissed when I found out. So when you go to Clemson for a game, they have stadium parking for the home fans, of course. If you are an away fan, you have to park 2 miles away, and the only parking spot they have for visiting parking, and you have to walk 2 miles uphill and then downhill to get to the stadium. I'm like, F this. I'm
so
taking a golf cart.
that's where my grandparents said they walked to.
Yeah, it's uphill both directions.
Uphill both ways.
Right.
It was just their walking to a Clemson game. That's where it actually comes from. It wasn't walking to school. It was walking to a fucking Clemson game.
All right, you really don't want to go to a WKU game.
We have not talked. We've been here for 8 minutes. We haven't even, and we've lost.
Let's get into our topic.
Really quick, let me get you guys' opinion on something. So obviously, I run a YouTube channel. At Maze Madman, for those who are wondering. Let me get your opinion. So I spoke with you. I don't bring this up often because I thought me and this guy were in a better place. Okay. And maybe I am and he's not. But anyway, there's another YouTuber who does Michigan football. I won't say any names. And
other than it rhymes with this person's name.
Right. I don't even know his name, if I'm being honest. But anyway, I won't even give out his channel. But what's funny is, and I'm starting to take this personal. So I will come with a pause. I will come with a edit, right? Thumbnail for whatever the story is I'm going to be talking about, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And then I talk about those things. I let people know what I'm going to talk about in the lead up to the video. These are all pre-records that I'm talking about now. And then I go and I talk about it. This person does the same thing, right? But then he takes my thumbnail ideas. And what I mean by that is the longest way to get an opinion. No, I agree. I'm sorry. This is my fault.
No, I think this is the entire intro is just what he's talking about.
Super roundabout here. But he takes my idea of like, if I do Jim Harbaugh and like a recruit, then he does Jim Harbaugh in the same recruit. And on his thumbnail. And then he names it something similar. And then he talks about the same things. It's really starting to bother me. I apologize.
You think he's just copying you?
Well, he's running away
less
to the
subscribers than you.
Yeah, at this point, it's really weird. And this is a person, like, I gave him credit because I was like, yo, part of the reason that I started my channel was this person. By the way, it's not Toast, everyone, because Toast is another inspiration to me starting the channel. But yeah, it's weird.
Shout out to Toast.
Shout out
Absolutely,
to Toast.
Shout out to Toast. But honestly, that's kind of whack.
It's disturbing.
No, I actually pointed it out to Phil. Like, I think I pointed this out to you last year, actually, before we started the Maize and Blue, because I was like, hey, I was subscribing to your channel,
yeah,
and I got videos like when I watch, because I watch your videos, and I saw like, oh, this recommended.
Yeah,
and I'm like, is this a Phil video? Because it looked exactly like your thumbnail.
Right.
Same lettering, same font. Same players,
crazy.
Same colors. You could tell he used Canva too.
Yeah, it's crazy. Which, by the way, I'm not mad at anybody using. I think everybody is using Canva pretty much. But
anyway, like I'm like, dude, Phil, is this you? Like, do you know this dude, or like you working with him? And Phil's like, no, but that's wild that he's copying my stuff.
It's wild, bro. And I guess imitation is the greatest form of flattery. But I'm sorry. Let's talk about some football. I know people are getting bored.
Yeah. So first things first,
only for football, and that's it.
No, it's not. I know we've wasted. How long have we been on now?
11 minutes. Let's get into it though. First things first, Nick Saban, the GOAT, the greatest coach of all time, retired. thank you, Michigan, even though that pains me to say. Michigan sent him packing into retirement.
Oh my God.
Saving the college football world from the Sith Lord that is Nick
The
Saban.
Sith Lord.
But anyway, he is retiring, which is sends shockwaves throughout college football, obviously, with head coaching vacancies now at 3 different schools within the last week and a half or so.
He said, let's keep ripping on toast.
It's not toast.
Toast, this is not you I'm talking about. You know that. You don't do this.
Anyway, so first things first, what were your guys' thoughts when you first heard the news that good old Nick Saban was packing his bags?
Well, I first heard that news last offseason, actually. And it's the same as last year. And of course, I didn't believe it, right? Because they've been saying the same thing for the past 3 years. Okay, but when it finally happened, and I actually, go on Twitter, verify, and everything else, like everyone should do whenever you hear news like that, it really was. I don't. It's weird. It's weird. Just like he's been the best for a long time, and now he's gone. There's this big vacuum, empty space in college football now, and who's going to step up?
Mm-hmm.
It's different.
Connor, what about you?
First initial thought was, man, I feel bad for Patriots fans who are also Duke fans, who are also Lakers fans.
We're also Alabama fans.
They're losing their head coach of 2 of their favorite teams. Man, they just loved him because all he did was win, but they actually never went to that school because they just bandwagoned the shit out of Alabama.
And half of those people, if you asked them who Mark Ingram was, they would not know the answer to that.
They probably wouldn't even know who Derek fucking Henry is either. They wouldn't even know who they probably couldn't even get who name AJ McCarron either. But that's a little bit more. That's a little bit.
I wouldn't know who Greg McElroy is.
Greg
McElroy.
Man, you're really throwing it back now.
A long time ago.
Wait, pause.
But anyway, yeah. I mean, obviously, it was a surprise. It's weird in that it felt.
Greg McElroy made Saban.
Oh man.
No, Bill Belichick made Saban.
Oh, he did. But anyway, what was weird is how, despite how his time he still was more at the top of his game than Belichick, right? Belichick definitely, it looked like the current NFL had passed him by in terms of offense. He still could be good defensively as a defensive coach, Belichick. And I think that's what the rumor, that's obviously people are saying, oh, it's because Saban left because he doesn't like the current way that college football is and stuff.
That's what Reggie Bush said. Reggie Bush called it.
That's what Reggie Bush said. I think it's also there was a rumor that his wife has some major health issue, and so he wants to spend more time with her, which I totally understand with that. Mm-hmm. But
prayers to Miss Terry.
It's weird also how, despite how Belichick was passed by with the NFL, he still seems like he's still driven to keep coaching, which is why he's interviewing with the Falcons, and he's probably going to interview with a few other teams. Whereas Saban, it's definitely more final. Saban's, I think, done. He's not obviously going to go anywhere because where can he else go to try and prove himself? You know what I mean?
He doesn't need to.
He doesn't need to either. Belichick doesn't need to either, I don't think. But I think Belichick still has that fire to show maybe the doubters wrong.
Belichick needs to win 14 more games.
Is it 14? I thought it was like 27.
14.
It's 14.
Yep.
Past Shula?
Yep.
Okay. On the Falcons,
Two average seasons could do that.
2 average seasons, 2 8-win seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, in the NFC South, 8 wins will probably win the division. Honestly, most years. So, anyway, yeah, no, it's surprising. It definitely feels weird. It's like both him, Belichick, and Carroll all retiring around in the span of 2 days. Makes it feel like the 2000s and like 2010s are like fully over.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. As football fans, and it's kind of sad to see. Obviously, we hated Bama because of how good they were and stuff. But Saban was just like so no nonsense and stuff. He was the college football version of Belichick. And DeBoer, we'll talk about him in a bit. He has a tough act to follow. Sorry, I was thinking I couldn't think of the word. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah. So I was shocked that it actually happened. Although, like Josh, like it wasn't completely surprising, right? I wasn't surprised. I was shocked that it was a final, right? I didn't know a year ago, but going into the Rose Bowl game, there were already talks about, if he loses this game, it could be the last one. Or even if he wins that game and goes on to the national championship, that could be the last game, right, for him. So there was already like rumblings about that, which is why I was kind of shocked that some of, or mostly just the one transfer that he got in Damani Jackson. I was shocked about that, but so I kind of felt like it could be the last one. And then when Michigan won, of course I ran with the fact that Michigan retired him with like a video or whatever, but I was just being that was just me in the moment celebrating Michigan. And it just happened to be his last opponent. But I think it is shocking. It causes a vacuum in college football. We've seen that, right? So many decommits, so many transfers, that it's just like open season on Alabama players right now. I do think it's going to be tough. I think it would have been tough for anybody to like fill those shoes, right? If like Kirby Smart went there, then maybe they could have held on to a bunch of those players. But anybody else, and that includes like the guy who just won the national championship, that includes Ryan Day, any of the great, anybody you think are great recruiters would have had a hard time keeping these players there after Nick left. So I think it was shocking, like I said, and obviously the effects are still being felt. DeBoer has a heck of a job on his hands trying to get that thing back. And I don't think it'll ever be like it was when Nick was there. At least, for it'll take another 30 years for another great coach, to, come to Alabama or whatever to turn it around.
Probably at Alabama.
Yeah, I think so. When I first thought of that, I was like, you heard the rumor, so it wasn't too surprising of news. But my first thought was, yes, Alabama back to irrelevancy. Josh will argue with me,
like a real hater.
But me and Lucas,
Argue with you?
you're because you said it was the best job in college football.
Oh, I don't think that.
My thing,
it's one of the best jobs.
I think me
Not
and
the
Lucas
worst.
both agreed, and Lucas will be joining us here later on. But this is kind of going into our next topic about the aftermath with Bama. I think what Nick Saban did at Alabama, taking them from a mediocre team, a mediocre brand within college football, besides their time with Bear Bryant. Yes, they had the Gene Stallings era, but that never really felt like the Bear Bryant era or even the Nick Saban era. He turned that team from a mediocre SEC team that went 6-6, 5-7 every year to a perennial. Our expectation is to win 3 national championships in 5 years. And I think Alabama fans now, especially the ones that grew up with this era, expect this to continue. They still think, even with all these players leaving and Nick Saban retiring, that we're still Bama. We're still going to go 10-2 next year, 11-1. We're going to win the SEC. Like, just delusional stuff. But my thing is, what Nick Saban turned that Bama team is so impressive. It is so, and I think you see it when these players leave, because I think I kind of mentioned this to a lot of like Bama fans, is the reason players, these 4 and 5 stars, went to Alabama in the last 10 plus years is not because they wanted to play for the University of Alabama, not because they loved the University of Alabama, but because they wanted to go play for the best coach in college football.
And they knew they were going to fight for a championship. Yeah. And
like Marlon Humphrey.
Marlon Humphrey
even tweeted out. He said, if this would have happened, I would have dipped the second I heard the news. When guys say that, that speaks volumes as where your program is without Nick Saban. Kids don't want to go there. Alabama's not this Southern California weather, this Florida weather, and nice attractions, and Tuscaloosa's this great city. No, that's not what it is. It's Nick Saban. And I think to expect it to be what it is or was under Saban is delusional. I'm not saying DeBoer, and we'll get in our next topic, but I don't think it's fair to expect DeBoer to go 10-2, 11-1, undefeated, and win the SEC in his first year. Hell, I think that might be delusional in his second or third year, because he's going to build his own culture, bring in his own players, and that's going to take time. But going forward, how do you guys feel this affects Alabama and where their standing is in college football going forward? Josh?
So you touched on it a little bit there. Alabama without an elite coach has been not that great. In terms of their history, they have, just parts of it with great coaches like Bear Bryant and Nick Saban. And then you've got other spats where it's 20 years in between a national championship. And honestly, there are Alabama fans that have never had to experience that in their life. Alabama's been the best football team in college football almost every year they've been alive. So, even, the bandwagon fans who don't have anything to do with Alabama football or anything like that, but it really just kind of speaks volumes about how great of a coach Saban was to make that an expectation. Moving forward without Saban, I really feel like that fan base is going to be very harsh on whatever success or lack of success this next coach is going to have, simply because he's not Nick Saban.
No, I'm thinking the same thing. As remember seeing what fans were saying when they didn't make the playoff last year, when they had 2 losses, and that's
they wanted Saban to retire.
Yeah, no, and I'm just like, you want him to retire now after going 11-2 and winning a New Year's Six bowl or something? Like, you're gonna be wishing he's back when you possibly. I mean, I wouldn't hope that this happens for DeBoer, because I think he's a good coach, obviously. But if he goes 6-6, 5-7, right? Like, it is going to be a absolute system shock for those fans that Josh is talking about, who have never known Bama being a bad team or too young to know that, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously, there's old fans who went through those years before Saban, right, and know that it's possible. Right, but it's the same thing as with Patriots fans who didn't know what it was like without Brady and Belichick, right? And the Patriots fans are now like, they don't know what to expect. They're just like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, why this now? So now I know what it feels like to actually suck, right? Yeah. And it's always not. It's never fun, but there's going to be some growing pains, I'm sure. DeBoer's probably going to be taking over a gutted team, right? It's going to take him at least a year or two to get all of his own players in, right? And it's going to be tough. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if I don't even know what their schedule is. They have a pretty tough schedule, actually. So,
let
me pull it up while I do that. So that's my thoughts. Why don't you go, Phil, while I pull the schedule up?
Yeah. So I think DeBoer is going to have a tough time. And I just want to touch on like the best job notion or the best, and I think it is the best job if Nick Saban's there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If Nick Saban is there, that makes this the best job because of what he's been able to do in terms of recruiting and obviously winning on the field. He is enduring like his worst stretch as a coach, though, right? Like I think this is the first time since he's been there that they went 3 seasons without making the national championship game, which when you think about that is quite insane. That speaks to his goatness, if you will. Like he's definitely the goat. I spoke about this. Here's something that's interesting. I brought this up leading into the Rose Bowl. And people like Buckeye Garrison had huge laughs about this, right? I said that Nick Saban was the GOAT. And I felt that way. I still feel that way. He is the GOAT, unquestionably, in my opinion. But I thought that at that time, like that day, I thought Jim Harbaugh was the best coach in college football for a myriad of reasons. Obviously, doing it without the talent level of even teams like the Buckeyes or Clemson, even Florida State, Alabama, Georgia. You don't even need to mention, the talent, from top to bottom wasn't the same. And it was his coaching and what he was doing, like from along with the assistant coaches. Let me not disrespect them, but he had to hire those guys. What they were doing from an X's and O's standpoint is what made Michigan elite this year in the last several years, right? The last 3 years, even before this 3-year run, right? When he was going 10-4 or 9-5, whatever, it was his coaching that even got that out of the University of Michigan and their players, right? The 2020 season aside, because that's a throwaway. I thought, like I said, Jim was the best coach in college football. Nick Saban is the GOAT. And it was just for this year, by the way. I wasn't, but a lot of people laughed. They said that Alabama was going to do XYZ to Michigan. And it really, even though the score was close, it went into overtime. It was a close game. It was not that close of a football game in terms of the physicality out there, in terms of execution. It was Michigan that allowed themselves to be in a actual fight because of the mistakes they were making. But I don't want to be long-winded with this thing because it is about Nick and his retirement, and hopefully, health is great and all of that, his wife as well. But go ahead and show what you were going to show, Connor.
Okay, so they have a schedule. They open first 2 games, Western Kentucky, USF, which is, I guess, the second part of that, home and home, at Wisconsin. Then they have a bye. They have Georgia at home, at Vanderbilt, South Carolina at home, at Tennessee, Missouri at home, at LSU, Mercer, at Oklahoma, and then Auburn.
It's rough.
So their 2 hardest games are, at least at home, will be Georgia,
Missouri,
and then depending how the defense improves
and
for
Iron.
LSU.
I mean, Hugh Freeze is recruiting crazy right now at Auburn.
Yeah. So I mean, 8-4. I mean, Stefan's right on there, maybe 8-4.
That's a loss.
At Oklahoma, at LSU. With all.
And who knows? What with Jalen Milroe? I mean,
I don't know if he's going to be.
Kalen DeVore fired. Kalen DeVore fired Nick Saban's entire staff and brought in all his guys.
Hey Ryan, it's going to be Will Rogers.
Oh, dude, if it's Will Rogers, it's
going to be Will Rogers, man.
But you know what's crazy is like what I'm saying is like Jalen Milroe. You can say what you want about his performance at times this year. I think you give him another year. Kind of like I feel like he's kind of in the same spot JJ McCarthy was last year when they played TCU, where it was his first year starting, led a college football playoff team a little bit short. But I think you give Jalen Milroe another season. I think he's a potential dark horse for Heisman, potential, first round draft pick maybe in 2026. But now that seems like that could be out the door depending on what the board does. But My thing, and I got into it with some Bama fans online. I'm like, you know what's not fair to DeBoer is that when that first loss, because that first loss is going to happen. When that first loss happens, the clamoring for Saban to come out of retirement is going to start. That pressure
Which
is
is
going to heat up.
ludicrous.
Yep. And that's the thing is like they're going to want him fired. And you know what's sad is I feel like DeBoer is in a lose-lose situation here. If he goes to Bama this year and gets them to a CFP, especially with a 12-team format,
He'll be fine.
you know what people will say? Bama fans will say, well, he took over a Nick Saban team. Whether that's right or not, that's what they will say. They'll give Nick Saban credit for that.
They'll give Saban the credit for that, and that's fine. But here's the thing:
And if he
they'll
loses,
still be happy
if he loses, they'll be like, well, this is why Nick Saban should come back to retirement.
Which is the most selfish thing I've ever heard. Honestly,
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But let me tell you about, and I'm going to be the first one to say it right here, right now. Will Rogers in a different shade of red is a terrifying thought.
Well, I told because Lucas was like, when Washington, when they're like, oh, after this year, he's like, well, Will Rogers isn't Michael Penix. I said, who is Michael Penix?
No, at Mississippi State, underneath the Pirate, Mike Leach, RIP, he was throwing for 3,000, 4,000 yards.
Yeah, and I mean, Will Rogers, we could argue who was a better quarterback, but Michael Penix, you could say him and Will Rogers, their careers are very lateral because Will Rogers was really good his first couple of years, dealt with coaching changes. His coach died. Rest in peace, the Pirate, by the way.
Yeah.
And then new coaching regime came in. They changed the offense. It's not an air raid anymore.
Completely changed the offense.
Yeah. I told Lucas, I said, you can laugh at Washington, but Will Rogers was going to play amazingly well in that offense.
Absolutely. And now he might get the opportunity to do it at Alabama.
But the only question is, who is he going to throw the ball to? Because all the receivers are leaving.
Who was he throwing the ball to at Mississippi State? Exactly.
Yeah.
Bunch of randos and walk-ons.
He will be fine.
So final thing, and then we'll move on to the Harbaugh stuff. But how do you guys feel about the DeBoer hire? Do you guys think he was the right guy for the job? Do you guys think they should have went and got somebody else? My only worry about DeBoer, and especially with him firing the entire staff that was already in place, is he doesn't have one guy on his staff that has either coached in the SEC or ever coached in the South in general on his staff. How is he going to recruit in the South with no connections?
It's going to be tough. But I'll go on and start off here. So DeBoer, however you say his name, I think he was a hire for the position. I think he was I like your set, Phil. But
I don't know what's happening.
Whatever. But I think he was.
What's going on?
Well, okay. Here, can I mention this?
I'll address it. All right.
Go
Lane Kiffin is established at Ole Miss, and I think he wants to take Ole Miss to a championship. He wants to say he did it his way, because that's just how Lane Kiffin rolls. But let me get back to
okay. I'll let you finish because I have a thought on this as well. Not about the Lane Kiffin, but the other part.
Yeah, I gotcha. So he was a hire. He just won he just gone to the national championship. He didn't win that game. He just had gone to the national championship with a Washington team that, like 5 years ago, if you would have told them they were going to be in the national championship game, they would have flipped. But he was a hire. Honestly, I would have thought someone like Dan Lanning would have been better. But
Lanning said no.
He likes what he's doing at Oregon. Kirby Smart. You don't even ask Kirby Smart. He wasn't gonna.
Well, they gave him a call. That was reported. They gave him a call, and it was a 5-second call. He said, "No, I'm good. Thank you for asking."
Yep, because he's already established.
Yeah.
You know, who are you gonna call, Jimbo Fisher? So
oh my God, that happened.
So I just he was just one of the guys, and he took the job. So
okay, I want to address the first part of Stefan's thing where they should have went with continuity and had Saban pick his successor. That's what sunk Alabama before Saban got there, other than the Gene Stalin years.
Bear Bryant.
They kept hiring former Bear Bryant players and assistants that were part of the Bear Bryant team, thinking that they were going to somehow have the magic being around Bear Bryant, and it didn't work. And
no, you only get that Bryant blood.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. You gotta go and you gotta you gotta do some grave robbing then. But
go get some Josh Bryant.
Right here. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But I'm saying that that would have been they would have been making the same mistake trying to. Now I would trust Saban to actually choose it, but if it doesn't work and they have to let go of whoever's hand picked, successor is in under 5 years, right? Then that's even worse. So that's going to be a worse situation. So sure, what Stefan says about DeBoer being, 5 years ago, being as far away from the Alabama job as could be humanly possible for a head coach, and now being there is a crazy fast ascent. Obviously, I think at least from all non-Alabama fans, DeBoer's going to get a mulligan for this year. He's going to.
Oh no, he's not. Alabama fans are going to eat him alive, man.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying for everybody that's not.
Oh yeah, for everybody else.
Alabama fans. I'm going to give him a pass. At least I personally will. I don't know if other people, non-Alabama fans, will. But he needs at least a year plus, build up his recruiting class, bring guys in, create that culture, and then we'll go from there, right? If he goes 8-4, if he makes a bowl game, which is hilarious. If he makes a bowl game and wins it, that's a good start for him. If they go 6-6, 5-7, don't make a bowl game or lose the bowl game, then there's going to be some really big problems potentially. And he probably will have a very short leash and probably get one more year, maybe 2 max after that. So he's got to hit the ground running.
Alabama is in the same situation Florida State was post Jimbo Fisher. I think because Florida State fans, if we remember, they were screaming for their current head coach to be fired after 2 straight losses to Jacksonville State at home. When he had to rebuild that Florida State program from nothing, because Jimbo Fisher left them nothing to work with. I think that Alabama's kind of in that same spot. DeBoer is losing everybody. They've lost, I believe, 30 players in the last couple days to the portal. That's almost half a roster. So you got to give him time to get his guys in. And like I said, rebuild his culture. But Phil, you think DeBoer was the right hire, or do you think they should have brought someone else in?
I don't know if the right hire is the right word. He's qualified. He's won everywhere he's been. So I don't have a problem with it. They tried to get other guys. Other guys said no. So, you got to take what you can get at this point. This guy just played in the national championship, as Josh pointed out, with Washington. He was the Washington Huskies head coach that played in the national championship. All right. So he obviously knows a thing or two about coaching. So I'm not upset from it from just a coaching standpoint. I'm not upset with it at all, if I'm being real. I do want to, you said something about, it's not important, but there was a sentiment about Florida State. You were talking about Florida State. They lost to Jacksonville State and people wanted them fired. They lost back-to-back years to Jacksonville State, I believe.
Yep.
People wanted Mike Norvell fired. And I think those people are justified because at no point, even with Jimbo, after Jimbo left them with nothing, at no point was Jacksonville State's roster on the level of Florida State's roster. So if you're losing back-to-back games to Jacksonville State, and you're wondering why people want you fired, then I got to question you. But to Mike Norvell's credit, he turned it around at Florida State. So I do think people don't get leashes like they used to, for sure. You don't get a chance to go in there and turn it around per se, even when somebody like Nick Saban leaves, even when Jimbo Fisher leaves, even after he got the keys on third base, if you will. So it is it's too much money involved now. People want results now.
No, he's right. Frank Beamer, his 5th year at Virginia Tech, he went, I want to say 2-9-1, and then they gave him like one last chance, and that's when he got him to like 8-9 wins. They won the Independence Bowl. That was the first bowl game he ever won. Now he came in with pretty much having a gutted program because Virginia Tech was hit with massive NCAA violation sanctions by the previous head coach. So he was like in a really bad spot. But still,
I get the Jacksonville State stuff.
6 years to figure it out, and that's back in the 90s.
I get the Jacksonville State stuff, but my point, and we'll move on to Harbaugh after this, but my point with that was Norvell took over a program that Jimbo Fisher completely left gutted when he went to Texas A&M. Any player that could play at Florida State joined him at A&M. I believe DeAndre Francois was still on that Florida State team when they brought in
a couple
Charlie.
quarterbacks still there.
Charlie Strong. Yeah, Charlie Strong took over for a year.
Oh, James Blackman, the dude who was like
6'5". DeAndre Francois came back from a torn ACL that he had against Bama. Got injured again. James Blackman comes in, and that dude is complete bad at football. By the way, he's still playing college football somehow. Yeah, that's crazy, right? Anyway, and then Charlie Strong took over for a year. Charlie Strong did what Charlie Strong did, which was recruit high-level guys, and then he got fired after 1 year, so that gutted the roster.
Was that Charlie Strong?
Yeah.
He was gone after just 1 year. I don't know why I thought he was there longer.
Oh, not Charlie Strong.
was
Willie
at
Taggart.
Texas, right?
Willie Taggart.
Yeah,
Taggart.
Yeah. Willie Taggart.
Look at you saying we all look the same.
No. Well, no. Willie Taggart and Charlie Strong are the same.
They do not look alike. They're
the same person.
Charlie Strong is a bald, fucking linebacker looking man, and Willie Taggart is not.
No, I'm saying they coach the same.
Phil, you look like a defensive lineman.
Let's look elsewhere in the SEC, right? Where have we seen a good coach leave after winning national championships at a school?
Nick Saban left LSU.
You just have a bunch of lesser coaches come in, or maybe they just don't have enough time that the really great coach had to build something great, like Florida, for example. After Urban Meyer left, Urban Meyer was at Florida for 5 years. You've got Will Muschamp. He was there for 3 seasons, 11-14. Anybody remember when DJ Durkin was the head coach of Florida? Yeah, me neither.
Wait, Durkin was there? All I ever remember of Durkin is the Jordan McNair situation at Maryland. I always forget that he was the head coach there.
And then Jim McElwain had 2 years. And then who remembers Randy Shannon?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Randy Shannon?
Yes.
What?
Randy Shannon. Yes, in 2017. Dan Mullen, 2018 through 2021. That was a long run.
When I'm Billy Ann, and now he's probably about to be fired if he doesn't go to bowl game this year.
You know what's crazy though, Josh?
Billy, man.
That speaks volumes though of Florida's. I would still argue Florida, when it's open, Florida is a better head coaching position than Alabama. And I think Alabama fans and even the Alabama administration, I think they thought when Nick Saban retired and they had that list of candidates, I don't think they thought Kirby would leave. But I think because they did call Lane Kiffin, they tried. I think they're like, there's no way Lane Kiffin's going to turn down Bama. And they're like, okay, Lane turned it down. There's no way Dan Lanning's going to turn down Alabama for Oregon. Anytime a head coach from Oregon's got offered a different position, they've left. There's no way. He turns him down, and they're sitting there looking, what we got? Well, this guy from Washington just took them to the national championship. All right, get him on the phone. Hey, you want me to come to Alabama? Hell yeah, I'll leave Washington for Alabama.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think it's like the pecking order.
Let's
of
be fair.
Alabama.
Would you? Did Dan Lanning make a mistake?
No, I think he's building something at Oregon.
I agree, he's building something at Oregon. However, Oregon, even with all the Phil Knight money, even with all their 1,076 uniform combinations and the great facilities, have won exactly nothing. And by nothing, I mean in terms of national championships, right?
Yep.
Dan Lanning, if he goes to Alabama, he's one of those guys, by the way. Kirby Smart would have kept a lot of those guys. I think Dan Lanning would have been able to keep a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
Could have kept a lot of those guys in Alabama, where the NIL is not an issue and boosters are not an issue. He could have won a lot of football games, or at least had the cupboard.
Yeah. But my
to
argument to that, Phil, is if you're Dan Lanning, what do you think it would be more impressive on your resume? And what do you think would give you more credit?
Oh, there's no doubt about it that winning at Oregon is more impressive on your resume.
Or following Saban and keeping most of his players that he had.
Right.
And if you do
or worse than that, following Saban, keeping those players and not being successful.
Yes.
So I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's move on. We've spent a lot on the GOAT, but it is the GOAT, and we don't get too many of those retiring nowadays. But Harbaugh, and he's already interviewed for the Chargers job and the Falcons job, while also being in negotiations with Michigan. So he likes to talk to.
He's a multitasker.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway. Anyway, he has.
I don't know where I was going with it. Whatever.
He has, quote, demanded in his contract with Michigan some unusual stipulations in his contract. Phil, what's going on over there in Ann Arbor?
So yeah, in the contract, he wants a clause that says Michigan cannot fire him with cause if the NCAA decides to come down on he or the university for the two outstanding investigations, one of them being Burgergate, the other being, of course, the Connor Stallions cheating episode.
What was Burgergate?
He bought a cheeseburger.
But it was some other violations there too. The main one being none of those violations would have been serious. The problem is that Jim stuck his nose up to the NCAA. They hit him with a level 2 violation or level 1 violation of not cooperating with an investigation. That's the issue. So that is the problem. He wants those clauses. He also doesn't want the contract to take place apparently until February, which would give him plenty of time.
NFL teams.
Exactly. Yes. Because also in the contract, what Michigan wants in the contract is for him not to talk to NFL teams in the future, at least the near future. I think the first year or two. So there's that. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. But first, hold my beer. I gotta go over here. So that's the issues right now.
So I'll go first, and then we'll let Phil give his thoughts on this. But I kind of want to get your guys, because you haven't really talked on it too much. But if my thoughts on this is, if I'm Michigan, and I think this is a good idea. If I have to put that stipulation in your contract, I saw your viewers talking about this too in the comments, Phil. If I have to give you that stipulation, then to protect our investment, you are not allowed to talk to NFL teams that's what I would say, because I feel like, and somebody kind of put this, I saw this on Twitter, but it's kind of like Michigan's in this abusive relationship where Harbaugh is mentally abusing them every season with threatening to go to the NFL. And he's still doing it by asking for this clause in his contract, but to also give him till February to sign it so that he can talk to NFL teams. It's like when you're like, if there's guys that talk to their girl and they're like, hey, I'm talking to these other women. I still want to be with you, but I need to know you won't leave me if I leave you.
Right.
Brian's over here just dying.
But you gotta give me till February so I cannot know if I want to be with these other women instead of you. Like, it would got me if I'm Michigan, it's making me feel some type of way. Because you're like, it's like I'm his backup option at this point, right? But how do you guys feel about Jim Harbaugh wanting protection for the future if the NCAA were to come down on Michigan?
Man, he's just playing him like a fucking fiddle.
Really?
He's playing both sides so well. Like if he hears that they're gonna come down, he's gonna go straight to the NFL, right? Peace. Totally peace.
Yeah.
F you guys. I'm out. He's just gonna do like the scene where it's just like F you, you all right, F you, F you, F you.
You know what would be effed up if Michigan gave him that clause in that contract, and then come February, right before he's about to sign, he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go take the Chargers job." But
Harbaugh's
Horrible.
go ahead, Phil.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So I get where it's definitely strenuous, right, on a fan or on anybody. I also, because you got to understand where he's coming from too. Michigan could have locked Harbaugh up 3 seasons ago, right? But Michigan decided, hey, not only are we not going to give you an extension, we're going to ask you to take a pay cut, which he did. And they gave him a contract that was very incentive laden to get him back to his original number, which, by the way, he knocked out all those incentives, right? And he got back to that original number and then donated all that incentive money back to the athletic department, which is another thumb up or, nose up to the athletic director who asked him to take this pay cut. So Harbaugh and Ward manual, that's why I have Fire Ward on my header there. They don't see eye to eye. They have a contentious relationship, which has caused for the last 3 seasons a lot of uncertainty in Ann Arbor. In addition to the clause, by the way, Harbaugh also wants the stipulation in the contract where Ward Manuel cannot be the person that fires him. Instead, it has to be a 3-person panel that has to come together. And so, it's kind of a lot of like gamesmanship between those two. I do think at this point that Jim is out.
Yeah,
I think he's going to leave. I've seen a bunch of people talk about how he could make more money in the NFL. I don't believe that. NFL coaches don't necessarily make $20 million a year.
I think the Chargers, I believe, have one of the richest owners.
Yeah,
so
but the Chargers are historically one of the cheapest teams. Right? They don't pay the players or the coaches there. So now, granted, I mean, they are trying to get Harbaugh, so maybe they could throw some money at him. But like I said, I don't necessarily think that going to the NFL means he's going to make a ton more money, because I don't believe that. 10 years, $120 million is on the table. If most people would take that. But I also don't believe it's about the money for Jim at this point. I do think he does want to win it. He wants to win a Super Bowl. I do believe that. And he has a quarterback that he likes. He's spoken about Herbert in the past glowingly. Even when people mention the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Jim Harbaugh has spoken glowingly about Justin Herbert. So there's something there. And I think they interviewed the GM that he would want. So I think it's a foregone conclusion. I do think Michigan is set up though with a succession plan in Sharon Moore. Jim probably takes Jesse Minter, which is going to hurt. Jim probably takes his son, Jay Harbaugh, who is like a safeties coach there, which, you know, is going to hurt a little less, but he's a pretty decent recruiter. So I think that's the fallout.
Yeah, and I don't know how you know, because people post all the time breaking news on Twitter, but there was a popular Michigan Twitter that put out there that it's official, like officially official, but it's not official. You know what I mean? It's not reported yet by everyone, but that it's almost a guarantee that he's going to take the Chargers job, take Minter and his brother with him to the Chargers, and that Michigan has already had talks with Sharon Moore about being the new next head coach, and that's locked in. So my question with you, Phil, is how do you think this would affect not only Michigan recruiting, but do you guys from the Michigan fan base, do you guys think that if Harbaugh leaves, even if they promote within house with Sharon Moore, that you guys are still, what do they call it? You're going to have a lot of kids in the portal?
I don't think we have a lot of kids in the portal. I do think some kids will jump in the portal. I think that's just what's going to happen. I don't think we have an Alabama situation, if that's what you're asking.
Mm-hmm. I don't mean like that. I mean, like, are you guys fearful of any starters?
No, I don't think any. I don't think any like. I think the guys who left. I spoke about in one of my videos. Actually, I was like, man, I think Darius Clemens and Amorian Walker are going to be guys that, and this was months ago, that could jump in the portal if they don't, get some playing time. Both of those guys jumped in the portal. That was expected, at least on my part. I don't think there's a lot of guys like. The thing is, a lot of these guys are like extremely loyal to the program. The Rod Moores, the Makari Pages of the world, that defense that brought back damn near everybody. So I think that side of the ball is going to be extremely solid. Offense is where all the questions are for me, and I think for a lot of Michigan fans. But I do think a lot of Michigan fans are hopeful that Harbaugh comes back. I think some of them maybe blissfully wishful that he comes back, but I do think it's over for that.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of compared it to, and I was having Alabama discussions with Alabama fans, and I was like, go look at Notre Dame with what happened when BK left. We didn't have, when we returned 95% of that roster. Those guys didn't jump ship and follow him to LSU or go anywhere else. There were a few guys. I think the only two guys was our punter and our backup running back. And I think, and then you look at, and I said, look at Michigan. Harbaugh's most likely gone, but I believe that most of those guys are going to stay. The difference between Notre Dame, Michigan, teams like that, even Ohio State, because they lost Urban Meyer, they didn't lose a lot of guys from that team. You know why those teams didn't lose those guys? Is because kids would go to Alabama for Nick Saban or whatever their incentive is, whether that be NIL. But kids go to Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, etc., because they not only love the head coaches, but they love the schools that they play at, and they love the guys that they play with. That's the difference. And you don't see that a lot of places in college football anymore. A lot of it's these kids, and you don't blame the kids for this, but these kids have ulterior motives when they pick a school. A lot of times it was just, hey, I love this school, so I'm going to go there. Now you get guys that, hey, highest bidder, best coach, best weather. Like, that's the type of stuff. And when you have those as your reasons, you have more reasons to leave than you do to stay at that point. Anyways, Josh, Connor, any thoughts on the Harbaugh situation?
No, I mean, I already kind of said it. I think he's gone.
Yeah.
Just, he's working the team, or he's working them in a way, you know what I mean? It's just crazy. Hearing those stipulations is crazy. Honestly, makes me think that he knows something's about to happen. Unfortunately, You know what I mean? that kind of gives me that thought. So I don't know. Sorry, Phil, if anything is about to happen. Yeah. Him with the Chargers, I like if he goes there. I am someone who's never truly fully believed actually in Justin Herbert as a top tier quarterback. I think he's
I
like.
don't either.
I agree with that.
Huh?
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I think he's a tier 2 quarterback. He's good enough to win, but he's not. He's
like Phillip Rivers.
His counting stats are amazing. Like, I would not trust. I would not. He wouldn't scare me to go drive down the field to win a game and put the team in position to do it. Now, was it maybe because Staley?
Yeah.
Staley would go for it at the worst times on 4th down inside his own 35. Sure, probably that could be it.
Dude, Staley went for it on 4th down 6 times against the Broncos. 5 of them were inside of his own 30. Like, when you're doing that, and you're sitting here, don't worry about it. Don't ask me again. I'm still calling the defense.
So, and I hate to go here, guys, but we got to talk about it, right? It's America. America has a history. I got to bring this up.
Yeah.
The coach before Brandon Staley was Anthony. What's his last name? He's like
Anthony Lynn.
Anthony Lynn.
No.
Was there for one season. Got the axe for Brandon Staley, by the way, who was there for multiple seasons and had records similar to Anthony's one season. Anthony Lynn's one season.
It's like when Jim Caldwell took the Lions.
Right. Took the Lions to the playoffs.
Took the Lions to the playoffs. 10-6 gets fired and they hire Matt Patricia.
Right. Got fired. They hired Matt Patricia. It's pretty glaring in the eyes of some.
Get all these old ass owners out of the NFL.
Because that is a crime, bro. Brandon Staley sat there and like you pointed out, I don't know if you guys remember this. Last year, the Raiders and the Chargers played the last game of the season.
For a playoff spot,
for a playoff spot, but both teams could have got in with a tie.
If they had tied,
and if you remember,
the Chargers stupidly went for it.
If you remember, the Raiders were okay with like, all right, we're just going to accept this tie. We'll both go.
You can totally see that. The Raiders were totally going to go. We're totally going to go for the tie.
That guy called timeout to try to save time, so it forced the Raiders' hand. We go ahead, win the game. They're eliminated because he's a dumbass. And
just like Josh McDaniels can't count to 8.
Bro, it's ridiculous.
But no, and that, kind of your point. They were talking about this on First Take earlier, and you got guys like Eric Bieniemy, right? Yeah. Dude gets all the interviews every year, never gets a job. It's
which
like
at some point hurts your stock too, right?
He's not even going to be named the Washington Commanders head coach. They're going to hire somebody else.
He's not. They want somebody. But that kind of hurts your stock over the years too. If you just keep interviewing, then in my eyes, if I'm an owner that sees that this coach keeps interviewing, not getting a job, I have a preconception like, oh, maybe he's not.
Well,
great.
or he's afraid of taking that step.
Hold on, Phil.
Now, there's definitely plenty.
McCarthy. Mike McCarthy goes to the playoffs and gets absolutely blown out by the 7-seed Packers. And the Packers make the Cowboys look like a middle school team, right? Gets embarrassed on national TV.
The Cowboys suffer.
And they're sitting there, you know what? Mike McCarthy is going to return as our head coach next year. Like,
hey, to be fair,
he went what, 12-5?
Right. 3 seasons. He's won 12 games, 3 seasons. Mike, the Cowboys' issues are bigger than Mike McCarthy.
It doesn't matter who's coaching in Dallas, honestly.
Right.
You wouldn't
starting to believe
Belichick
Stephen A. Smith, and there's a black cat running around the organization.
His name's Jerry Jones.
Yes. Yes.
But I mean, you couldn't tell me if I'm like Jerry Jones and I'm like, we just got embarrassed Everybody's clowning us on Twitter. Like,
I don't think Jerry Jones says the word clowning.
Anyway,
I'm sure he doesn't.
But we, Bill Belichick's available. Mike, fire Mike McCarthy.
Yo, great point by Stephen here.
McCarthy.
Kingsbury got fired at Texas Tech. Okay, Texas Tech failed upwards into the NFL because he shook hands with McVay.
And he's about to fail back into the NFL again, potentially as the.
Hey, he's going to be that. That the Bears.
For the Bears.
He's reported the Bears are going to make him the highest paid OC in the NFL.
What? Now, I didn't know he was going to be the highest paid. He shouldn't be the highest paid anything right now. But I do think, by the way, I'm not even sure I can say listen, USC was a dumpster fire this past season. He should not be getting interviews like this. He has videotape of someone doing illicit things. It's clear to me because I don't understand.
Well, it's the Bears. It's the Bears, Phil. When do they ever make?
I mean, I get
hires?
that. Yeah.
You know what they probably thought? They're like, you know what? Caleb Williams doesn't want to play in Chicago. Who is a guy that we can hire that Caleb Williams would want to come to Chicago to play for? Cliff Kingsbury. Make him the highest paid OC in the NFL.
Crazy.
Oh, man. USC is hilarious. They're trees of coaches. Anyway, final thoughts, and then we're going to get out of here. But there was an interesting point that was made on Twitter. We're just over an hour, but this is the last thing. There was a writer for On3 who's got a pretty big following, but he made a post complaining about the portal, specifically with Alabama, because we all know On3 is ran by SEC people. It's only an issue when it happens to an SEC team. But they were basically complaining about how they were basically complaining about how it's unfair that when a coach leaves, the portal reopens for 30 days, and that the only players in the portal are Alabama players. So they're crying. They're crying because it's happening. Normal stuff is happening, but it's to an SEC team. How do you guys feel about the rule that if a head coach leaves, the players have 30 days to either enter or stay?
I mean, I feel like it's fine the way it is. The only reason I could imagine somebody complaining about it is SEC, more specifically Alabama fans saying, well, they can't go out and get anybody during this time period, which, although is true, like nobody's going to transfer to Alabama, because they can't transfer right now unless their coach got fired or left or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just think it's there's a word for it, but it's just it's just crying, yelling at clouds, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter.
It's like, you think Michigan fans would complain about how the system is rigged and life's so unfair if Harbaugh leaves and a couple players enter the portal?
No, but it wasn't a couple. It was 30.
No, I know, but like, you see Washington fans complaining? They've been quiet, man. I feel, what's sad is I feel worse for Washington.
Oh, jeez.
Oh my gosh, Bill.
Bill, Jesus.
Oh, was I
We had
loud?
to bleep all of that
You were
out.
just like,
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
good.
you're fine now, but you look fuzzy. You look like you're back in the 1990s.
All right.
Oh, God.
They don't exist.
Let
Like,
They don't exist. That's
Phil
right.
Cook
We'll
is
let
just
Phil
every
cook.
other word we figure out.
Right.
Go ahead, Phil.
I'm walking.
Oh, no.
All right, Phil. All right. We're going to need you to hop up on your roof and, turn your dish a little bit, buddy. It's bad.
Yeah, Phil. Just I think
But
this
anyway,
is a good
no.
time to just.
But anyway, I
Leave
was
your
just
clothes
saying,
on.
You don't see like Washington and Arizona fans,
Michigan,
right?
Michigan fans have their own form of
Understand
Like
what he's
Josh.
saying.
Josh, you're
Wolverine language.
Josh, your little violin.
Oh, this
This word
think
it's-
silent.
real
Stefan,
nice, ain't it?
Stefan,
See
we
right
appreciate
there?
you being here, man.
It's
Make
time
sure
to
you
play
like and
it.
subscribe to the
We
Week Zero
appreciate
podcast.
you being
We're trying to grow this.
But
So-
no, Phil, you got Alabama fans crying it's unfair. Meanwhile, nobody's sticking up for little bro Washington and especially little bro Arizona about how those guys are losing all their players and coaches.
Losing all their players.
You know what's
There are
crazy
some-
is Arizona had, I believe, what was it? 10
All those
players
3-stars leave.
enter the portal
How
within
devastating.
30 minutes of their coach leaving.
Yeah.
You know, speaking
Wow.
of that, Jed Fish talked to his team, had a team meeting the day he left, talked to his team for 3 minutes and then left.
Cool. Let's wrap this up.
Phil or Connor?
Oh,
Check
sorry.
this out.
Okay. I thought you wanted my final thoughts or something. So for Ryan, for Phil, for Josh, I am Connor. This has been the Week Zero podcast. We'll be back, another 2-3 weeks or something?
2 weeks, Thursday.
2 weeks. Yep. We'll be doing it every other week now, at least during the off season. We will also be starting hopefully soon. Me, Josh, Phil will also be starting his own Michigan specific short little formatted videos about Michigan. I'll be doing the Hokie Focus.
Yep.
Josh will be doing the Kentucky Corner. We'll hopefully somehow get a miraculous quack 30 from Lucas.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, real quick before we hop off, you guys send Kyle 5 plays that you want in your team specific intros for your
Got
guys' shows.
I already did.
Okay.
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 Yeah, I'll send them in the chat.
We need to add Michigan to the intro for at least for the Tuesday
Yeah, that's
shows.
what I was going to. I'm going to.
But we gotta cut
By
it
the way,
down.
I see the
Orange.
Black M on the Week 0 thing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, cut the block in. We definitely got to cut the intro down though, Ryan, because it's already like a minute.
Way
it's
too
already
long.
like a
Yeah.
minute.
Hey, Connor, let's not talk about making the sausage and just eat it, buddy. Come on.
Pause.
Pause.
Let's go. I gotta go.
Okay,
All
have a
right,
good night,
all right.
guys. We'll see you.